and we would also say that that was not ideal. So we can call a spade a spade. We can take the same measurement, which I was saying, which is not necessarily presentism, but when is a girl, what can we say about, in terms of science, about when someone is physically and mentally ready?
If you now consider this, what does the Quran actually give a guidance to?
Very nice to meet you.
You too. What does the Quran give, what kind of guidelines in terms of marriage? It doesn't...
No, I heard what you said.
No, it doesn't give you an age.
Right.
Yeah? So it tells you when they have reached the age of rushd, age of intellectual maturity.
Which is fine, right? No one's going to really argue
So we
about
can't
that.
just focus on an isolated example of the Prophet's marriage, which he did not say this is imposed, to be imposed on every individual Muslims.
I agree
He didn't
with
say
that.
that. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So I think we both understand, and we have the similar kind of understanding on this issue.
Yeah, the question is, you brought up a few things about what, people are making some bad arguments about this. Using the word pedophilia, I don't think really helps elaborate the discussion. The main question is do we want to be marrying and having sex with girls of a certain age? Yeah? Is it reasonable to think that 9
See, we are now again trying
might be
to...
an age? And I will concede that in whatever traditions you want, Christian traditions, English royalty, whatever, this stuff has gone on all over the place. But as I said before, we've hopefully learned something about it. We don't know everything about it, but what present day knowledge now says, this doesn't seem to be very good idea. We shouldn't marry girls that are 9.
We should know that in Islam considers the principle of harm. If there's going to be any harm involved, that age, even though when they've just reached the age of maturity, then in terms of puberty, this is not a good enough age to get married because there's any amount of harm involved. So Islam has quite clear principle in terms of what you can or you cannot do.
So was she old enough?
No, I'm saying if there's going to be harm done, then that is not the age. At a point where there will be no harm done, she's intellectually mature, physically mature, and then no harm involved, this is the time when you can say, yes, this is the guideline that gives you allowance for that.
Right. Let me say this. This is a fairly soft assumption, and see what you say to this. I would say that it seems to me to be fairly unlikely that a girl of 9 would be physically or mentally ready to get married.
Depending on the social historical context.
Yeah, there can always be exceptions, but...
No, not exceptions. Not exceptions.
I would say that
as we were discussing earlier,
would you agree
as we
or
were
disagree
discussing
with
earlier,
that?
I would disagree with you on this reason, that historically speaking, young girls who become women at the age of onset of puberty, they were also mature enough. So I give you example of the Indian tradition where a boy of 8-year-old is intellectually mature and when he reaches age of puberty, he can be physically mature and he can actually produce children. So if you look at this now, are you going to say now, okay, now he has to wait until he becomes 20? I'm saying no. The age is not what determines when you get married. This is an artificial boundary that we put up for a reason. Okay, so Islam is quite flexible, where it hasn't set an age, but it gives you minimum conditions, if you want to call that. Minimum standards or conditions where this has to be at least attained before someone gets married.
Let's grant that the Quran gave sufficient guidance in this area. The question I was saying was that Muhammad married a woman that was 9. And I would say, without knowing any, clearly I wasn't there, don't know the woman, but if you put the basic facts out there, are 9-year-olds ready for marriage? I would say I don't think I've ever seen a 9-year-old that would be ready for marriage. It seems incredibly unlikely to me. What would you say to that?
Sure. Have you seen in England where 8-year-old girls or women have become pregnant and then given birth when they were 9? This has happened in this country.
I'm sure
UK.
that's happened, yeah.
Yeah. So were they ready biologically?
Biologically, yes.
Yes. So you may question whether they're intellectually ready or not.
Biologically ready in terms of able.
Yeah.
As I said, as I said before, that science says that just because a woman has reached puberty and is able, doesn't mean her body is necessarily ready for it.
That's what I'm
saying. Sex might do a bit of harm.
That's what I'm saying. If there's any amount of harm involved, then obviously no. So Islam, as I said again, is flexible enough to give a universal guideline where You can apply this guideline anywhere in the world. You don't have to have some kind of bone density to find out your age. And saying, I was discussing with a very intelligent young woman earlier, some time ago, saying you have to know your age. You have to be absolutely 18, and you can determine my bone age. You don't need to. And people in Africa
there's
or
no disagreement there. There's a question of it's a continuum. Some are ready at earlier ages than others.
Yes.
We know
so
that.
it can be different to different people on different culture.
Towards the edge, like 9 years old, I don't believe she was ready.
No, you may believe.
I'll say that. I don't think she was ready. What would you say?
I would say, we have to take case by case. Maybe there is an example here in Britain that she was ready. You can't just take your assumption that she wasn't ready, because this is what you hope that she's not ready, because she's quite young. She's just about reached the age of biological maturity. It doesn't mean she also automatically has attained intellectual maturity.
It wouldn't be a hope on my part, by the way.
An assumption.
I would hope that she was ready, because if she wasn't, it's
an assumption. Sorry, wrong
right?
words.
If she wasn't ready, it's an awful
It's an assumption.
And I think that's why this subject gets the kind of
So can I ask you a question?
Does, yes.
If someone is intellectually mature and biologically mature at the age of 10, what do you consider?
I mean, if that was the case, the age doesn't matter. My contention is, I don't think that's likely at all.
You think it's not likely?
I think it's incredibly unlikely.
What's not likely? Which one?
For
Biology
someone to reach
or intellectual maturity?
Intellectual maturity.
Right.
I don't think your brain's even done growing by that age.
Okay. At what age do we become intellectually mature?
I think for men it's later, and for girls it's earlier. So I think for men, I would say it's over 20 in terms of the development of your brain.
So according to your understanding, a 19-year-old shouldn't get married because they're not intellectually mature.
That's not what I said. I said
if you haven't, remember, generally, those people who are not intellectually mature, they shouldn't get married. That's what we were discussing.
If you wanted my opinion, I would say, it's probably better to get married a little later in your 20s for lots of other different reasons. You develop kind of, what you want out of life and what kind of person. There's lots of different reasons why you might not know enough when you're 18 to make a choice that's going to last, 40 or 50 years.
What determines intellectual maturity?
That's a good question.
Because we have very, very smart 11-year-old studying in Oxford and Cambridge.
Right.
We're talking about university, right? Colleges in Oxford. So this is degree level.
Right.
Very smart. Are they intellectually mature or immature?
In terms of academics, they seem to be quite mature.
Not just academia, intellectual maturity.
Well, I mean, that maturity comes with, like I said, the further development of your brains and development of your emotional...
This young man, at the age of 11, they're going to Oxford and Cambridge.
Right.
Are you suggesting they're not intellectually mature? What's missing in their maturity?
There's probably quite a bit of social development that's missing.
Like?
Social development.
Like what? What are they missing in terms of social interaction? Are you saying they're unable to understand how to interact with society?
I mean, your experience. This is what I said.
No, I'm giving examples to understand how do one become intellectually mature, what governs that process of maturation, and what are the factors of intellectual maturity. How do we measure it?
I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not going to go into that. I'm not going to try. But as I said, obviously, as you develop, you learn more. Your brain develops,
sure.
You learn more,
but
you
these
develop emotionally, lots of...
No, I agree, as you go on, but these individual young persons, at the age of 11, for example, they're able to understand, comprehend much better than we can, for example, as general people.
Yeah.
So, if we are consider ourselves as intellectually mature individuals, looking at their brain capacity or capability, they're far can outsmart us in terms of maturity in intellect.
In terms of ability, not necessarily maturity.
So again, what is maturity determined by? You're saying it's determined by experience.
Clearly, maturity doesn't stop at 18, does it?
No.
I mean, I don't know how old you are, but I'm sure you felt over a 10-year period, you're quite, maybe not a different person.
Are they intellectually mature enough?
I think that's a better word, mature enough. We've determined that when you're 18, it seems that you're mature enough.
It's an arbitrary age from nowhere.
It is. But, a lot of people would discourage getting married there for the reasons that I said. You're better off waiting and not rushing.
Where did this age come from?
Sorry?
Decided by what?
Well, I mean, obviously there are physical factors that show you to have matured into an adult.
Someone who is
Obviously-
17 and a half and
Yeah.
someone who's 18.
Yeah.
Do you consider that their intellectual maturity is a huge difference or a slight difference?
Probably a slight difference.
Slight difference. So a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old, you really consider that their maturity intellectually, there's a difference?
It could be quite a bit. That depends upon the person.
Like what? Like what?
Huh?
Like what? A 17 and a 19-year-old.
Yeah. I mean, if I said, let's, without trying to strap ourselves down with going through a lot of psychological thing, if I said someone's acting like a baby, you would know what I'm talking about. Some people act like babies. Some people keep acting like
Yeah,
babies.
like many
into-
40-year-old here acts like a baby, for example. You've
That's
seen
right.
yourself.
That's right.
It doesn't mean that they shouldn't get married.
No, it doesn't.
So we should not put, these obstacles in the forms of guidelines. We're saying this is the only.
Let me make a distinction. I'm not trying to make a distinction between 17 and 19-year-olds and what. I'm not trying to finesse this and get it down to a right age. I'm saying when you go that far down the spectrum, down to 9 years old, I think it's really unlikely that that person is physically or mentally ready. And I have to say, I don't think you could show me a case of a person, and maybe you can, which I'm open to. This is why I'm kind of going here. Showing me a person that's ready for that. I would say,
What about 13? What about 14? What about 15?
It's obviously much better, isn't it?
Yeah.
13,
So,
13.
so you would say, look, a 15-year-old is okay because we have many girls getting married at 15 years old, having children, and their children having babies again, and then she becomes their grandmother when she's not even 30.
It's a world of difference between a 15-year-old and a 9-year-old. A
Fine,
world of
fine.
difference. We're
So-
not talking about minutiae. We're not
fine.
finessing it.
Fine. So the more developed you are, the better you are in terms of the prospects of less harm, right?
Yeah, I mean, here's what we don't want to happen, right? What you don't want to happen to a girl that gets married too early is, one, the physical harm that comes with a body that's not ready for intercourse,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
And as I've said, science has said that when a girl has reached puberty, she is not necessarily ready, and most likely not ready for intercourse. That's number one. Number two
You need to go
is
number one first. That's a bit odd from science because your body, the biology determines that you're actually now getting ready to conceive. That's the transformation that's happening in your
part of
body.
it. That's part of it. Everything's there's multivariables to everything.
No, if you think about it, this puberty is a transformation where a girl, for example, develops into a woman who can bear a child. That's the development, that's the transformation. And then to say that actually she's not ready is a contradiction in terms. Because
I don't think so.
this change is happening for that very reason, to conceive a child.
Yeah, I mean, we have to go into the science and say why they're saying that, right? I mean, because there's things don't happen all at once. I mean, generally your body changes slowly.
They are
So you go
saying,
through
I know
puberty.
some of the reports a long time ago, the reason why, because in certain cultures and certain countries, because of malnutrition, because of poverty, these women, young women, would have a very bad pregnancy.
Yeah.
The child would not develop, will have development delays later on, and conditions of undue development. Is because of these nutritional deficiencies during child pregnancy. So if you can argue, if now you have a young woman in a Western country where nutrition is not a problem, in fact, getting yourself not to be fat is a problem because there's so much nutrition around. Then the argument doesn't work anymore because now biology has determined the woman, this young girl, to conceive and to have a child and go through this pregnancy. Nutrition is not a problem.
I never would have said. I mean, I totally agree with you that nutrition is a huge factor in how people develop and whether they develop even completely or not.
But I think we both agree. We both agree.
but I'm going to press you a little bit, not to be a stinker, but just to give you an answer. So are you saying that good nutrition gets us for a 9-year-old to be ready?
No, I'm saying this is an argument against the medical field who says you shouldn't get married while you're just very young. The arguments were initially proposed, as far as I remember, right? I may be wrong, but if I remember correctly, it's because of this. Because they're doing epidemiological studies where different societies, different cultures throughout globally, what is the harm being done when young women conceive early and have children? And the reasons that are bringing out from those studies is because of these nutritional deficiencies during pregnancy.
That might be the case. I don't remember the study. I just remember that they said once she reached puberty, she wasn't necessarily.
Anyway, can I ask you a different question altogether?
Yeah, go on.
I mean, we agree. I mean, just to summarize then, we agree.
We agree, except
that
for the
it is
the
not just the
9-year-old.
biology.
That's right.
And this age determines. There's a lot of complicating factors.
That's right.
And some people don't even get mature when they're even 30 years old,
That's right.
biologically and physically. Okay. So there are lots of variables involved. We were discussing in the context of the accusations of pedophilia to our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Yeah.
That's it. So this is totally unjustified, and in fact, it doesn't help
I don't think
bridge
it's
the
not
gap.
justified. That term and category, that's where I'll give you the presentism, because clearly everyone was married. Girls are quite young, so there wouldn't have been the same moral maybe awareness or anything that it might be wrong. So I don't think we can paint him with that brush. The brush we can paint him with is that if he's getting guidance from the creator of the universe and a girl of 9 is not ready, then we can paint him with that brush.
Yeah, but as I said, the Prophet ﷺ, for example, didn't like to have garlic. It doesn't mean he imposes that on every individual. The Quran clearly sets guidance for Muslim man and woman, and it may also give guidance for the Prophet also, because he also received guidance from God how to conduct. He's reprimanded for, ignoring, for example, when some blind man came and wanted attention, and he was giving attention to the allies at that time, and God reprimanded him. So he is also a recipient of guidance, but of course, when God guides him, he's the best guide. But there can be some individual personal circumstances, which doesn't mean that needs to be imposed on every believer's man or woman. That's the point I'm making.
Let me ask you something completely hypothetical. So you can see where I come from in this argument, is that the fact that Muhammad married someone at 9 puts a little bit of question to me on whether he is who he claims he is.
Why?
He's
Why would
getting
that be a question?
Because I don't think that someone getting divine
That's presentism.
direction. No, it's not presentism. It's as I said before.
I'll tell you
I would
why.
say I don't think the girl was ready. No, I
Okay.
can't say that for an absolute certainty.
First of all,
certainly probability says
if the
that she's
father
not.
of the girl consider her had to be able to get married. If the father of the girl, in fact, she was already engaged with someone else.
Yeah, that doesn't matter.
No. Just to say,
I grant that everyone at the time thought she was ready, because that's how they did things. They married girls off young. They might have been marrying girls off that were too young to get married
but the
all
girl
the time, and it was
itself
accepted
has
as normal.
a say, an understanding in a relationship, which you somehow think, okay, the Prophet is the one who thought, and not the spouse that he's getting married
She
to.
may have. I mean, if I said something like this, sometimes girls get married off very young and they don't want to get married, and the fathers marry them off anyway. I wouldn't be saying anything strange, but it happens all the time.
Happens.
I'm not saying that means that's what the Prophet did. I'm just saying we can't.
But in Islam it's different.
I'm just saying, obviously, there's a certain pressure on
But in
the
terms of the
girls and
guidelines in Islam, if a woman doesn't want to get married, the father cannot force that particular woman to get married to their choice.
You shouldn't, but they could, and they often, as I said, they often
No, that's
do.
not the guidelines from Islam.
I didn't say that was the guideline.
Yeah, so Islam gives you guidelines where the woman's choice,
Because there's obviously two parts
into
with
account.
Muhammad. Is he's not just sticking. I mean, obviously he's got a direct connection with God. I mean, he's special. He should be. I don't know. Is he perfect? Is he perfect? He should be perfect. He should be.
He's the best example.
The the best example. So we shouldn't find something that falls way outside of line.
But I don't see why this example of him marrying someone, because your opinion is she wasn't ready. That's your opinion. That's your assumption. But if she was ready, you will say it's okay.
I think I've clarified why it's my assumption, is I think it's highly unlikely that you could present me with a 9-year-old that's ready to get married.
I gave you example from Britain here, an 8-year-old.
No, you said someone who could conceive,
no,
a child.
it happened. It was in the papers.
Yeah,
I used to carry that paper cutting with me just to demonstrate my point.
Right. I grant that someone could physically give birth at that age. I grant that quickly.
Sure.
There's no contention there. My question is, you know, is her body ready for that? Is she mentally ready for that?
Sure. What if she was? Okay.
If she was, then there's no problem.
Sure. She lived.
It's not the age.
No.
If she's ready,
let's
she's
look
ready.
at Southampton. And it's important to actually get her perspective on it. What was her perspective in her marital life with the Prophet ﷺ? Because she outlived the Prophet. What was her perspective? That's important to understand. If you
seem to be positive.
Not seem to be, absolutely positive. Absolutely positive. I mean, from her, we got most of our religion, you know, a lot of our religion and religious teaching from her. Yeah. She passed on. So how is it that if she felt harmed in any way, she would have spoken about it?
Yeah, I mean, it could be, there's lots of things that
so that should decide whether she was ready or not.
There's lots of things that probably happen to your life in your life that are harmful, and you don't know the difference.
No. What I'm saying is,
so
in terms of
could be the case.
No. I would not agree with this point here. If she had a relationship, if she was
something that harms you that you don't know.
If she was married and she had any issues, any problems, she wasn't ready because this young age, she would have spoken about it.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm saying she would definitely have spoken about it.
I grant you that.
Yeah. So that's why we have positive remarks from her testimony, from her marital life with the Prophet. That is enough and sufficient for us to take and say the relationship that he has, whether she was ready or not. I mean, I don't have to go any beyond this at all. I was going to summarize it, but we kept on bringing back on this issue. In terms of the question that I was going to ask you, a lot of these issues revolve around our concept of God. What's your concept of God?
I don't really have one.
So do you have some kind of opinion about this reality and whether it was always there, what came about, and where it come about, where you come from, where you're going?
Obviously, I have opinions that are based on science, and that's about it. Obviously, I can imagine what could have been, how things might come up with.
So we are constantly learning from
alternative hypotheses,
yeah.
But obviously, I couldn't say anything for certain.
So, from what you understand, how's our universe always been from scientific understanding of the different models they present?
Well, science can discuss the universe back to shortly after the Big Bang, and that's as far as it can say anything about it.
So it's actually a finite universe, in
might
that
be.
sense.
Scientists don't say whether it's finite or whether it's infinite. There's models that do both. No one knows which is the right model. It could be that the Big Bang is the beginning of everything that exists. It could be that the Big Bang is part of a greater continuum where these events happen quite a lot. I don't find anything logically or wrong with that, or I don't see how you could imagine that's not the case, but we don't know.
So, in terms of these two, opposing understanding of our universe, the different models, how do you think the role of our creation or our existence in relation to this universe? Are we a product of our universe ourselves, or are we actually the creation of a creator who created this universe? How does that sound to you? Does the science that you're familiar with, does it tell you that yes, it's possible that we can come from a product of chance or unconscious existence?
So clearly science tells us that we came out of the product as a product of the universe. So you can call it random, you could say it's not purpose. I don't think it really matters. You know, the universe has evolved in a certain way, and we are a part of that process, and that's how we came about.
Is the universe
Now that being said, I don't think that requires you to be an atheist or anything, or not have a God belief. You know, I don't see anything wrong with having a creator that created this process. I see nothing wrong with it.
What's your view? Is the creator involved or no creator?
I don't know.
So you're agnostic in either of the positions?
Yeah, so my position as far as religion would be that I do believe religions themselves to be man-made, mostly, if not entirely. That doesn't stop one from believing that there might be a creator, that he might be personal, that he might instill us with some morals or guide us morally. There's nothing that stops you from proposing any of those things.
If you have an option of there might be a creator, then it's also possible from that option that the creator, as you said, may have guided people. If taking that possibility to its logical conclusion. If you have a position where there is no creator, then this has one conclusion to follow from it. If you have a possibility of another option where there is a creator, and this creator this creator created this universe, then it's logical to explore that this creator may have given reasons why he's created, may have shown guidance of how to live our life, may have given purpose of our life and how to follow this purpose. That means then religion entirely cannot be said, from your position, is entirely man-made. As you said, you don't say entirely man-made, but maybe some of them, maybe most of them.
Well, let's put it this way.
Not all of them.
I don't claim to be talking to God or have had any revelations or anything like this. Yet, you know, from a purely secular means, you could come up with some of the same types of moralities. In fact, people have. You know, there's been plenty of secular philosophy done on morality done over the last couple of thousand years. It's not strange at all.
So morality can be, you know, something that has been accepted in a particular society, and it can change because morality is based on the social conditioning of the people. Today you might consider yourself human sacrifice is unacceptable, but at one point the same humans considered it to be a praiseworthy action. The Aztecs did it. It was praiseworthy. It's a noble act to actually sacrifice your own life for rain to happen by this God who will be pleased with your own sacrifice.
That's right.
Yeah. So in this kind of understanding, the morality can be subjective, and which it is, and can be relative to particular social, historical context.
Yeah, I want to clarify. I mean, morality is based on learning. I mean, part of it is a certain learning of how societies work. You know, clearly there was a lot more killing that went on in the streets in the earlier days than there is now. Why is that? Well, I don't think it's because of divine revelation. I think it's a matter of people saying, this killing is really killing me. So how can we stop this? How can we have a better? I mean, we can all envision. I don't think one needs to be religious to envision like a utopia. What's the best kind of society we want to live in? And I think those kind of things are. You know, there's some things that are subjective, and there's a lot more that's common. You know, not killing each other, not stealing from each other. You know, respecting each other. These are things we can kind of agree on these because it makes our life more pleasant.
But this is how we're trying to accept some of these moral values. It wasn't always the case.
That's right.
Yeah, it was. So we, as you say, in your process of
it's a bit of awareness of recognizing that these principles are there. And if you would just espouse a few of them, you could make a better society. So people hadn't done it yet.
Yeah. So in Islam, the principles are such that Allah, the Creator, tells us He has created us and instilled within us the two sets of values, understanding the good and the bad. He's shown us the both ways, the good way and the bad way. Successful is the one who purifies it, makes it better, and the loser is the one who actually goes against it and takes the wrong path. So if you look at it now, this is our makeup, the human makeup, that we have this understanding of what is good or bad, and God sends prophets and messengers to remind us and give us this guidance to follow strictly this guidance, this value system, where you can live in a society harmoniously in a way that you prosper and you flourish and you become a better person. You develop yourself. So that's why, as a Muslim, it's a constant struggle of a Muslim's life to make themselves better, become a better person. Always from the beginning of their life until they die, to constantly make themselves better. We're not perfect, but we try to reach perfection, which we'll never reach, but this is the goal. And we're not requested or demanded of to be perfect, but we have to strive to make ourselves to that level of state of being where we are a better person. We're individuals who are the most noble, and so on and so forth. And that's why Prophet Muhammad, he said one of the reasons why he was raised was to perfect the nobility character. So you can see underlying this is an assumption that people actually are noble, but he's come here to perfect it, to give the perfection to this character. So the desires that we may have, which will make it impure, which will make it less than perfect, that will be cleansed, that will be shown that it's not right, and then uplifted to a point where you become a very noble person. So people have within themselves this idea of greed, this feelings of greed, but Islam says no, you need to control it. And there are lots of different mechanisms of controlling your greed and to show selflessness, selfishness, where you go and be a person of compassion, mercy and kindness and justice and generosity, where you control this feeling. And that is where what we are actually, one of the purpose of this life is to show where and how we can balance the way we are created in our weaknesses and follow the guidance that we are supposed to follow. If we did that, then awaits for us is another life of eternal joy, happiness, bliss, and what we call total bliss and enjoyment. But if you don't follow it and you totally corrupt yourself to at the point where you make yourself destined by your own belief and actions to go to a place of eternal torture and misery and suffering. So we have this balance in this life where we have to work towards something that is better. So in Islam, this belief that we have is something that you will see that our heart and mind agrees to. Like this, we want to live forever. We want to be happy forever. We want to be, the best enjoyment and so on. But we can't achieve it in this life. We can achieve it in another life. We have to also control ourselves to help our ego to make it restrained so that it doesn't interfere with the goodness of other people. It doesn't harm others. It doesn't oppress others. It doesn't commit injustice.